I have gathered every single anthurium I own. Yes, every single one. I want to give my anthuriums a fresh start for the growing season. So in today's video, we're going to repot all of them. Hey everybody and welcome back to our YouTube channel. You finally got a slightly bigger table, huh? You enjoy that, aren't you? You enjoy that. You shed so much hair at the moment, my baby. Can't brush you enough. Oh well, hello everybody. It is the beginning of October, and while we had a really warm start to spring, we had a couple of 30+ degree days at the beginning of September already. It actually dipped quite a bit again during mid and end of September. So we're only now truly getting to temperatures that are consistently nice. So there is a whole lot of repotting coming our way. And I want to start off with my anthuriums. All of my anthuriums live indoors, at least all of them lived indoors over winter. But anyway, let's maybe just get started because there's a lot to do, and then I can give you that sort of background while I repot, if my baby lets me. Are you gonna let me? Okay, come on, darling. Move. Alright. And you guys know it's gonna be serious if I put my apron on. Oh, I might have snatched it a little too tight, huh? Breathing is not overrated after all. Alright. This is going to be my repotting table. I've got a big table, but now I've got a small box. I used the big box for something else already. But I'm also going to build this little, also the smallest repotting mat in the world. But that's okay, some of my anthuriums are quite small, and you know what, today is going to be messy. I'm not even going to try and minimize the mess, I'm just going to clean up later. That's it. I feel like we need to go chronologically, right? Otherwise I'm going to lose it. Start off with this one over here. And I wasn't 100% honest with you guys. I'm not going to repot every single one. I'm just going to repot the ones that need it. This one actually needs a repot. It's my lush pot of Anthurium crystallinum hybrids that are lovingly called Crazy Rubbish. But I actually have a really cool idea with this. There's something kind of interesting I want to do with it. Not with the display itself, but with some of the seedlings. So I'm gonna do that in a separate video because that in itself, it's a crazy mess in here. There's like, I don't know, probably by now 30 odd plants in here. So that in itself is gonna take a little while to separate, put back together, make it look nice and so on. So for today, I can't see it. I don't think it's all too root bound, to be honest. So for today, I'm just going to leave it. But later, after I repotted everything, it's actually raining today. So I'm going to take them all outside and just let Mother Nature clean them a little bit. So it's definitely going to go outside in a sec, but let's park it back on the side. I just wanted to, yes, come on. I just wanted to include it so that it's truly all of my anthuriums in my collection. Exactly. Let's go with this one over here. This one isn't doing too well, my Clarinervium. I've had this for a couple of years, and honestly, this is the biggest it's ever been. Hey, it was a terrible idea getting the bigger table, huh? I'm just giving you more stage to be cutesy, which isn't a bad thing. You guys really love the bread interactions. So I think this has had root rot. I think. Let's see. Yeah, it smells a bit like root rot. Actually, no, it doesn't smell too bad. Yeah, okay. It had root rot. Now, let me tell you about my anthuriums. So basically, during summer, they were all in my greenhouse, or not all of them, a bunch of them were in my greenhouse, and they were absolutely loving it, but I actually took them inside before winter really hit. So they weren't damaged by being outside during the cold. They're all overwintered inside, and they are still inside, and I'm probably going to wait another 2 weeks or so until I start putting some more plants outside again. However, I was very lazy during winter when it comes to watering these, because I have them all kind of like really cramped in one shelf and the leaves spread like crazy. When I move one plant out of the shelf, like I just kind of rip leaves left, right and center. So I kind of try to avoid taking them out of the shelf. Which means I never really checked if they need water. I just kind of watered based on intuition. So I think I let a lot of these dry out way too much. And they really don't like drying out. And then when you, so can you see this bottom part? This is all kind of rot. See how I can just, yeah, see I told you it's gonna get messy. See, I can just pull these roots off. They're super mushy. So I'm just gonna really gently pull on those. But there are some healthy roots here instead. So basically what happens is I let some of these dry out way too much. And then as a result of it drying out way too much, when you then re-wet it, the roots don't magically come back to life. They actually then start rotting. So I think that is going to be the case with a bunch of my anthuriums. I very heavily noticed after I came back from Miami, which is just a week and a half ago, because I was also filming a time-lapse of my anthurium shelf, and as a result of that I didn't take any of the plants out of the pot for over a month to check water levels, and I really just sprayed the top, which I always have like a layer of moss at the top. So I sprayed that with a spray gun and hoping that just enough water dripples down, but not too much water to overwater it. So I just purely went on intuition and not actually checking, and I don't think I was super successful with it. I mean, quite clearly I wasn't. Anyway, this is not as bad as I actually expected. This is kind of okay. Now, what I could also do is, I'll bring you a bit closer. That should be good visible. You can really see these more healthy roots at the top over here. They were all grown in the moss because I did a good job keeping the roots in the moss moist, or consistently moist. Whereas I think all of the ones that were in the pot over here, they went through a few cycles of just drying out too much. And this is a result of that, had a little bit of rot. I'm actually thinking I might cut this over here and let the top just grow nicely, and then I'll propagate the bottom. Then I have two, one for the greenhouse, one for indoors. To be honest, I didn't actually want to make any propagations because, well, I feel like I have too many plants already. I want to have more quality rather than quantity. Hey, I could just put them together, huh? Let's maybe do that. And all of these old pots, I'm just going to give them a good rinse, especially if I know that there was a bit of root rot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to park this on the side, let the cuts callus over a little bit, and then I'll just pot them back together. But then I have two plants in here to create a lusher look. Yes, that's really what I need to do this year. I need to create lusher looks because anthuriums spread a lot anyway. So might as well, like the spread isn't going to be twice as big if I have two plants right next to each other. It's just two plants that spread, still take up the same amount of space, but it's lusher in itself, so it's worth taking up the space. Does that make sense? Okay, now normally I like to reuse my medium, but because there's so much root rot in here, I'm going to have to discard this potting mix and not reuse it in an attempt to not spread the potting, to not spread the rot. Yeah. Okay, so far we are not being very successful and or fast. Where was I? Okay, so you kind of know what happened to my anthuriums over winter. This one is a Veitchii. The worst grower for me. I've had this for I think 4 years now, and I grew this from a seed, so I do think maybe I just have a dud. It smells good, it smells fine. I also grown this in many different positions. I've grown it in a greenhouse, outside of the greenhouse, in my IKEA cabinet, and right in front of a grow light, further away from a grow light, warmer temperatures, colder temperatures. I mean, since I have this, I lived in 1, 2, 3, 4 places, and each place comes with like a different set of conditions, and I just didn't like any of them. So I think either Veitchii and I don't get along, or maybe this is a dud. That's what a few other people told me in the comment section when I was complaining about it. I see people growing Veitchiis with ease in room conditions, room temperature, like in Germany, for example. And I think it's a high altitude anthurium, so it should like high humidity and lower temperatures. So our winter is perfect for that. It had like on average 80% humidity and like maybe 20 degrees. So not super, super hot, but it still didn't like winter either. All right, kind of a disappointing root system, but it is what it is, huh? Oh, now I have a huge bucket of aeroid mix over here that I prepared, and I have tried I'm going to try something new with this aeroid mix. There's a lot of Australian tree fern fiber. Let me bring it a bit closer to you. Here we go. It's a new product that Tim from Grow Vertical is stocking, and he said it's a waste product coming out of Tasmania. Apparently this is a byproduct of what they're doing anyway. So there's no deforestation purposely for this product, but rather taking the product and then making the best use of it, right? So I thought, okay, let's give this a shot, because it is much more cost effective than the New Zealand tree fern fiber that I've tried before, and I really had good results with tree fern fiber previous, but it looks very different. It's going to be interesting to see how this one goes, but technically it should have really good water retention, which these anthuriums like, right? So I don't need to worry about them drying out, but at the same time it has good aeration, and of course I have, as always, my bark, pumice, perlite, cocoa chips in there as well. Now it looks more dense than my normal chunky aeroid mix. You can't see as many air pockets. You probably can't see anything from how far away you are. I'm sure we'll see it over the course of the video. But it feels very light. I think that's because the tree fern fiber is actually just really, really light in weight. So yeah, I'm curious to see. I might need to compact that a little bit just to give it structure. There we go. Going to be interesting to see how this one goes. And yes, I'm experimenting with my whole collection all at once. YOLO! Why not? You know. Actually, I don't want to do the really big ones for now. I'm just going to focus on a few smaller ones first, get them out of the way, because my brain is currently very busy with how messy it is over here. This one is, I think, just a bird's nest anthurium. But interesting story. One of the very, very first plant purchases I've ever made was from a lady called Neva. And I think some of my Sydney-based followers might also know her. She had this pop-up store in the city and was selling cuttings from her greenhouse. And I was so excited. I was working in the city that day, and I really, really, really wanted a verrucosum. They were so rare in the country back then. It was before they came out of tissue culture. So I got to that pop-up, like I took my lunch break and I went to that pop-up like 10 minutes before it started to make sure that I'm gonna be first. And I got there and I got the plants that I wanted. I got a verrucosum and a melanochrysum, and that's still the two plants that you guys know now. Like they've been with me ever since, like since the beginning. I think that was in January 2020. Yeah, so they've been with me for over 4 years now. She was super kind, and because the verrucosum was not cheap, because I spent a decent amount of money, she gave me a little El Salvador. This is still the El Salvador that I like to grow now, and Discoria discala, which you guys also probably know. So that was a very, very successful day in my plant journey, my hobby, because I got 4 plants that I really, really enjoyed growing over the last 4 years, and I've had amazing success with. So that was definitely like one of these catalyst days, you know, where I'm just like, oh my god, I'm taking this to the next level. I have such beautiful plants, and they were tiny, like tiny. I hope I can find photos to put on the screen for you guys. And that really sparked this sort of enjoyment of getting really small plants and then growing them as large as possible. Anyway, what does it have to do with this anthurium? She also had an anthurium there that was in bloom, and she gave me some berries, and I was so fresh to the hobby, right? I didn't even know how to put a substrate together just yet and so on. It's actually a miracle that the verrucosum and Milano survived. She's like, oh, just take some berries, you take a Ziploc bag, put moss in it, and just squeeze the berry in there and let it happen. And that's it. I didn't clean the berries. I didn't really do any research on it. And it's somewhat eventuated. I mean, look, this plant is now 4 years old and it's the only berry that survived. So obviously I didn't optimize the germination process and so on, but it worked. But now I think I have a better process of, you know, pollinating and germinating and so on. And I've done a lengthy video on that as well. But I'm still really happy. This was the first ever plant I grew from seed. And I think the reason why it's so stunted is also because it's always been a filler. It's always been the plant that goes into my dark bathroom, just so I've got a plant there. So this plant is super, super hardy. And I think this is the first repot in 3 years that I've given it. So you can see it has super nice chunky roots. So it probably doesn't actually need the water retention that I'm about to give it. But realistically, I'm not going to make a different substrate for this plant. But I want to use a different pot because I want to put it back in my bathroom, so I don't want to have as small pot as possible. So I got this little pot, I think it's an orchid pot, it has like aeration on the sides as well. So I think that will serve these really chunky roots quite well. So let's do that. So yeah, it's honestly one of these plants that I have done so little for, and I can't believe it's still alive. Like, it really wants to survive. And also with the increased tree fern fiber, I don't know if I actually need to put a layer of moss on top. I don't think I will for these two, but for some of the velvets I think I will. And yes, I'm just gonna choose randomly. Alright, so all of the ones on this table to my right are currently living inside my IKEA cabinet. And yeah, to be honest, I don't think they need repotting. They've had repotting recently. The IKEA cabinet, I actually did a repot in winter because there's hardly any changes to the conditions inside the cabinet over winter and summer and so on, or at least compared to everything else. So I gave these a repot. This one, I believe, is a hybrid of a Magnificum Forgetii crossed with My Queen. I gave a friend the pollen of My Queen and he pollinated his Magnificum Forgetii hybrid. And it's spotting its first little inflow over here as well, but I don't want inflows just yet, so I cut them off. Somebody told me as well that cutting them off doesn't actually do anything but just trigger a new inflow, but I don't care. I like cutting them off. It's super beautiful. I really enjoy the darkness of it. And look at this new leaf over here with the red coming through. Very pretty. And I do enjoy the closed sinus, even though that closed sinus seems to be less prominent in the new leaf over here. Yeah, we'll see. But nothing to do actually, I'll just park this on the side. This one is my Luxuriance and it's pushing out a brand new leaf over here. How cute is this? And I also love the ruffled petioles. Very, very root bound. I don't know if you can see this, so let's repot this. This is one of the latest additions to my Anthurium collection. Actually there's, I think, 2 or 3 that came after. But I definitely had a period, maybe 3 years ago, where I got a lot of Anthuriums, and those are still the Anthuriums that are with me now. I like Anthuriums, really, don't get me wrong, I really enjoy them actually, but I feel like I've got the ones that I like. And yes, there's endless amount of hybrids, and I spoke to lots of people about that at the not the Collectors Plant Fair, the Aeroid Expo in Miami actually. Hang on, let me quickly look how root bound that is. It's just one solid mess, but it is very tree fern fiber heavy, so this should come apart quite easily because tree fern fiber is nice and flaky. So I just want to loosen up a tiny bit. But I also don't want to disturb the plant too much, especially while it is growing a brand new leaf up there. I don't want to undo all of this beautiful work. You can see how it's a climber, right? You can see it's climbing quite slowly, and there's some aerial roots over here that I would love to now make contact with a substrate. So I'm gonna pot this up a bit deeper. So I also want to loosen this up a bit so it's not already right at the bottom of the pot. So I spoke to a lot of people at the expo in Miami, And a lot of people went to say hi and all of that. I'm going to film a little live update where I'm going to talk more about the actual experience. I really want to focus on the plants for today's video. So what was really surprising to me is, first of all, how many variegated plants there are. You guys really love the variegated plants over there. I mean, maybe it's also just a matter of them being available. We don't have them available over here, so you know, nobody talks about them because we don't even know they exist. But yeah, everything was variegated. I hardly saw monstera, like of course variegated monsteras, a billion of them, but I hardly saw any normal green monsteras, like even obliquas. I mean, there were some obliquas for sure, but like, you know, obliquas, siltipicanas, El Salvadors, pinatipatitas, escaladois, like some were there, but they weren't really that popular either. Saponata, I don't know, I feel like you guys are maybe sleeping a little bit, or dubia even. Maybe they're so common that they're in every nursery that they aren't really, like, people don't bring them to these plant fairs, maybe, I don't know. But I love a good, even an Adansonii. A nicely grown Adansonii is sexy. So anyway, you guys love your variegation, and you guys love the anthuriums. I mean, it's very similar over here. We have a very hardcore anthurium community in Australia, I feel like, that just like to hybridize anthuriums and swap them and make new hybrids and come up with funky names about them and so on, you know. So I think people really love anthuriums, and I think I said I'm gonna be gentle, and I'm like going pretty hard on this, am I not? It's gonna be worth it in the end. And I think for a couple of reasons. First of all, well, obviously they're beautiful, and I love the velvet anthuriums for sure. By the way, I think variegated anthuriums are not that pretty, by the way. We've got one coming up. And obviously there's lots of variety, and it's very interesting that you can hybridize them so easily by yourself as well. And people have come up with amazing hybrids over the years and decades. I also was fortunate enough to meet Doc Block, who's very well known for his anthurium hybrids. Marie Nock, I think is her name. She's the she made Anthurium Delta Force, which we also have got coming up, by the way. She was also there and gave a little talk. Unfortunately, I was so busy I wasn't really able to talk to her or other, let's say, like plant. Oh my god, I just ripped so many roots off just then. Let's stop. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to talk to too many people. I mean, I talked to a lot of people, but it was more like people that want to talk to me and say hello to me and talk to me about my plants, and not necessarily the other way around. Which is also okay, which is exactly what I'm there for. To be honest, sometimes I'm not really here for the super nerdy talk. I want this hobby to be like super easy and fun and accessible, and I want to make people either get into the hobby or enjoy the hobby or not take this hobby too seriously, and just really get people to enjoy this hobby for, oh my god, for the right reasons, and not because it is trendy or it's cool or because people chasing like the rarest or most expensive plant and so on. Like, it's about the growing aspect, and hopefully people use my videos to enjoy the growing journey. Anyway, where am I going with this? What I really wanted to say is that you guys really love the anthuriums over there. There were so many anthuriums and so many anthurium hybrids, and just a little note on the taxonomy. It's like there's literally, it's like anthurium and crossed with anthurium heather. That means nothing, you know. So somebody left a comment the other day, would be like, yeah, plant names are like 90% marketing, and that's really what I felt, which isn't bad. At the end of the day, like, I don't care what you name your plant. Does it look nice? You know, that's really my main concern. Like, what did you, like, whatever you called it isn't so relevant. This, by the way, is a variegated anthurium. It has seen much better days. It's actually doing terribly, so I think something needs to change, and that is probably the substrate. It's just been in moss for probably 2 years or 3 years now. Oof. Algae much. Wow, there was like 7 thoughts in one go, right? So yeah, I was actually really surprised at how people are eating up the anthuriums. They really like it. My preference is always velvet philodendron, then normal philodendron, then monsteras, and then anthuriums. I just don't necessarily love their growth pattern. I don't necessarily love how much space they take up. Yeah, there's a bit of root rot here, isn't there? I'm gonna cut off all of these rather shit looking roots. I will also just let this callus over a little bit because I just cut this. This one is one of my newest plants, Anthurium Noma. Yeah, some decent roots. Let me bring you closer. I would say I got this maybe 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago. Editing yarn is smarter than filming yarn. Ooh, and this is its first leaf that's coming out over here. So while we're here, let's give it its first pot. It's cute. I'm gonna give this a pot, decent sized pot already. It doesn't need it just yet, but I also don't want to repot it again, and growing season is just getting started. Here we go. I'll give it a layer of moss later on as well. Next up, we've got Anthurium. I'll put it on screen. Straight up, I really dislike this burnt leaf. It got too close to my grow light. I know it doesn't look that bad, but it's pissing me off. I've been looking at it for too long. So it's okay. There's a new one coming over here. Alrighty, let's give this a repot. AJ gave this to me and I think it's time to take it out of very good roots. I think it's time to take it out of the IKEA cabinet soon because the petioles are too long. They're pushing up against the front where there's a grow light. I really want to just keep really small plants in my cabinet going forward, like that one I showed you earlier. As soon as they become too big, it gets a bit messy in there. Yeah, it's another really tree fern fiber heavy substrate to start off with, and see how nicely it just flakes out. Hardly any effort involved over here. I think with the luxuriance earlier I left it a little too long. Anyway, I was halfway through my conversation and then kind of gave up on it. Basically, what I think, or what I've discussed with a few people over there as well, and what I've observed, is that Anthuriums are really nice, of course, and I like them, but I kind of gotten a lot of them 2-3 years ago. Gotten the ones that I wanted, you know, like a Clarinervium, a Crystallinum, a Magnificum, a Forgetii, a Queen, a Veitchii. You know what I mean? Like now I finally got a Luxuriance, so I feel like I've got these are the ones I kind of wanted. I've got a darker hybrid, the puppy one over here. So I feel like all of my Anthuriums, you guys know my taste. I like veining, I like velvet, I like dark. So I've got like one of each, and that's it. I feel like like once I had one of each, yes, I understand that there's lots of different hybrids that have lots of nice little features. Wouldn't mind like a red Crystallinum, for example. I think that's something I don't really have just yet, but I'm not desperate to like collect them all like it's Pokemon, but I think that is what a lot of plant collectors like to do. It's called collecting for a reason. People love collecting stuff. For example, I collect ducks, right? It's cute, like why not? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with collecting, but I feel like I'm more in the hobby of growing plants, not necessarily collecting plants. I'm in the hobby of taking plants and decorating my apartment with plants, not collecting them. It's not just about having the piece of DNA in my collection just for the sake of it, to have the complete collection, right? For me it's more about, okay, is this plant actually suiting my conditions? Is this plant something that I like to grow? What is this plant going to look like when it grows up? Is this plant going to take up a lot of space when it grows up? Is this a space commitment is this a plant I want to commit that much space to, and so on. It's not just about having every single type, but each to their own, and that's one of the beautiful things about this hobby, right? There's so many ways of enjoying this hobby, and I'm not saying one way is better than the other, but for the sake of my channel, you guys are gonna get to experience my experience, and my experience is being a plant grower. Of course, as a plant grower, I also collect plants, otherwise there wouldn't be anything to grow. But I am definitely more headed towards quality over quantity. And as a result of that, I don't really have the need to get all of these crazy Anthurium hybrids Even if they're really inexpensive these days. There's a lot of really inexpensive seedlings being sold of Anthurium hybrids I don't already have, but they're not different enough for me to commit time. Oh my god, I have substrate on my face already, it's itchy. I don't want to commit that much time and space and so on to some of these plants. This is a crazy rubbish. It is... maybe, okay, let's just do it, might as well. So this is one of the crazy rubbish that I isolated from that big pot a while ago, but it's not doing well. I don't know why. Maybe also root rot. Let's investigate. But yeah, I think Anthuriums kind of really quench that thirst for never-ending collections. You know what I mean? People who just want to... okay, how do I say that? Okay, just whatever I say, keep in mind it's just my opinion, right? You can do whatever you want. But I feel like there's a lot of people that are in this hobby for the sake of purchasing more plants. I mean, look at it. Look at plant videos you see on YouTube or Instagram. There's so many videos about plant hauls, you know, like these new plants that I bought, new plants that I got here, 10, you know, all of this stuff. So the act of buying plants is very popular content. There's a lot of people that want to see other people buy plants, which makes me think that there's a lot of people that just want to buy plants as well. I mean, I do sometimes buy plants as well, but when I buy plants, I usually like don't make a video about just, hey, new plants that I got. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but that is not necessarily entertaining to me. It's not about buying plants. You can buy, all it takes to buy a plant is money. And obviously the plant being available in your country. I like growing plants, so my videos are more around growing plants and how to grow the plants and how long it might take to grow a plant, and hopefully some practical tips and tricks, and hopefully the joy that growing plants take. And I think it's a good, there's need for both, right? Like, it would be boring if we all make the same content. It's just purely an observation. So for people to make content that is just focused on purchasing and going shopping, there's obviously high demand for people who want to watch this. And I think Anthuriums really quench that thirst. There's only so many velvet philodendron that you can buy. There's only so many monsteras you can buy, and also monsteras will look very similar eventually. I mean, all of the plants look very similar eventually if you want to complete the collection, if you know what I mean. But I think with Anthuriums, because of this never-ending stream of hybrids that are coming out, and then tissue culture and all of this, you know, I'm like, it will basically never get boring. You will never run out of things to buy. Now, whether or not all of these purchases end up being grown nicely and even survive and so on, like, that's, I mean, I suppose it depends on the collector, but I don't understand how you could possibly have that much space to showcase all of them. But yeah, I think that is one of the big reasons why, oh my god, so itchy, sorry. I think that is one of the big reasons why Anthuriums are so popular, because they just really tap into that shopaholic mindset, or they tap into this never-ending collection mindset. And as long as you enjoy that, as long as it brings you joy, then go for gold. All I want is for people to just enjoy this hobby. So do whatever it takes to enjoy this hobby, but also be open-minded. Not everybody needs to do the hobby in the same way that you do. And I think the more I talk to people, from different parts of the world, and you know, also doing the Inspired by SPG submissions and the Dr. SPG series, and just getting a little bit more insight into my audience and my followers, subscribers, and what kind of what they do in their plant hobby and so on, the more open-minded I get, and the more I also understand that there isn't just one way of doing this hobby. And yeah, I think that's a beautiful thing, that we also have so many different content creators that all create content around plants, but it's a completely different vibe, let's say. Just because I met him recently, if you look at Sean, for example, from Only Plants, I absolutely love that guy. I started watching his content way before I even had the idea of making my own YouTube channel. And yes, sometimes we do similar-ish content, but very often our content is also very different, because he goes to a lot of amazing houses and gardens and all of that stuff, you know, because also probably also due to his location, you know, like where he just has, there's people that have like houses with plants that look like museums and so on, and I love that. I love seeing how other people have decorated their houses with plants and how they incorporated plants into their homes and their interior design. That's some of my favorite content to watch. I personally wouldn't watch somebody else repot anthuriums for 2 hours, for example, right? Because I already do that myself. But it's okay. I know that you guys really enjoy these lengthy videos where we sit down. This is the Delta Force, that's it. That's the Delta Force. So I just gave it a fresh pot, 10 centimeters with my new aeroid mix, and see how it goes. Yeah, each to their own. I think that's what makes this so beautiful. And also, I think my content pivots a little bit throughout the seasons, like throughout the year, over the years as well, you know, as I've been doing this for longer and longer, the more need for a bit of variety I've got as well, I think. But sometimes then I'm like, actually no, I just want to go back to basics, just sit there, look after my plants and take you along the journey. At the end of the day, by the way, I've got a huge box of moss over here. This is all moss I have taken from moss piles that didn't survive winter. So I am reusing the moss, that's why it doesn't look the freshest anymore, but it still has water retention and certainly is good enough for a little pot topper. So why I like to top the pots with a little bit of sphagnum moss is number one, it stops it from drying out. Now I might not need this as badly given that the new substrate is more water retentive than my previous one. Secondly, it takes any aerial roots from the stem and it just funnels it into the pot before they might dry out. So I've had great success with a little topper of moss, and I've also heard that the moss can positively influence the pH, but that is too scientific for me. I'll just leave you with this random potential fact. So yeah, all comes back down to, and I feel like a broken record, but all comes down to just enjoying this hobby. And yeah, everybody finds joy in different things, and some people find joy in purchasing plants, some people find joy in growing plants, some people find joy in owning plants, and some people just find joy in looking at plants. There's even been a lot of people that tell me they watch my content and they don't even own any of the plants, they just enjoy looking at them for me. And I actually, the longer I've been doing this hobby for, the more I can kind of empathize with them. For example, I just uploaded my Miami vlog of the journey, and a lot of people were like, oh my god, how could you possibly go there and restrict yourself from buying anything? Because due to our strict biosecurity laws, I was not able to purchase any of the plants while I attended the fair. And of course, it wasn't the easiest thing to ever do. But first of all, I went in there with that mindset. So it wasn't like, I'm ready to buy all of the plants, and then last minute it hit me, oh shoot, I'm not allowed to bring any back. I knew from the beginning that I'm just going there to meet people and see plants and not buy plants. The longer I've been doing this hobby for, and the more content I am with my collection, the less need I feel to actually buy more plants and own plants. I can just look at other people's plants. I don't need to own every plant to appreciate it. Yes, of course, some of these plants I would also love to have at home and look at and decorate my house with, but I already have amazing plants and I'm really grateful for them. And you know, I'm running out of space. Like, adding more plants isn't necessarily gonna make that problem go away. It's just gonna make the problem worse, right? So I just put a little topping on all of those, and let's park them back on the side over here. All gonna go out for a big shower. Oh, let's have a look at this. Because I think also this is another one of these mixed pots of seedlings. There's definitely some roots sticking out, but again, I feel like this is going to be a bit of a mission, so I'm just going to park this on the side and we're going to just put it out in the rain. But I wanted to include it. It's not looking the best, to be honest, so I should do something about it, but a separate video. Alrighty, let's have a look at this one. Fertiliser also has not been repotted in probably 2-3 years. Some chunky roots, but also looks like some dead roots in here as well. Okay, let's give it a repot. This is also one of these plants that I just kind of pour water over it and hope that was sufficient. There's no method to my madness. But yeah, there's 3 plants in here, by the way. That's why it's so lush, and that's how I bought it. It came with 3 heads, and then I never propagated this plant. It just does its own thing. Okay, let's take this out of here. It's heavy. Yeah, if anything, I appreciate sometimes when there's plants that I get to enjoy, but I don't have to grow them myself, because growing plants takes a lot of effort and consistency and so on, right? And I already have a lot of plants that take up a lot of my time. I don't necessarily want it to be more and more to the extent where I eventually stop enjoying this hobby because it becomes so much work. And keep in mind, this is my full-time job. I would say creating content is my full-time job, not necessarily just looking after plants. I want the looking after plant to be easy. I mean, you still need to be consistent and do it every week, otherwise your plants won't really be happy. But I want it to be a compromise between it being easy, but also trying to optimize plants as a result. Does that make sense? I don't know. Okay, let's put it that way maybe. Like, I think my approach to plant care is more about, okay, let's focus on 20% of the effort that gets us 80% of the result. But then to get your plants to that next level, that additional 20%, that requires 80% of the effort. That's when you suddenly need to measure light and measure the pH and buffer your medium and buffer your water and all of that. And I'm not here for that. I personally don't think that additional 80% of effort is worth an additional 20% of growth or beauty, or never having a yellow edge, or never having a yellow leaf, or never having a browning variegation and so on. That personally to me is just not worth the effort. And I also think it's not super relatable from a content perspective, right? If I now tell you that, hey, here are these 8,000 steps you need to do, I think as a beginner in this hobby, it would kind of be a little bit overwhelming, and it will probably stop you from either giving it a go or enjoying the hobby if I suddenly turn around and tell you that, you know, you need to do all of these things. And I love when people go really hardcore on this and are like that and want to do all of that. As long as it brings you enjoyment, then that's okay. But to me, it's not worth it. I actually really enjoy the content creation aspect. Now that I can do this full time and don't need to rush it, I really enjoy creating content, teaching people, and I want to teach as many people as possible. So I'm focusing on the average houseplant grower, not the hardcore collector. I have nothing to teach these people. They know much better than me. But I hope I can make this content relatable enough for people to feel like, hey, you know what, I can give this a go. And I understand that sometimes people think my content isn't super relatable because I live in Australia and apparently we have the best conditions ever, but that is not true at all. When I went to Florida, Florida has much better conditions, for example, right? And also when growing indoors, we're all facing similar-ish challenges. When I do these inspired by SPG videos, we have people from Poland, Hungary, US, England, Germany sent through the most amazing plants that might put my collection to shame. So no, it is not necessarily just an Australian thing. I do think that everybody can achieve great results if they put their mind to it. Anyway, I'm obviously just talking at this stage, verbal diarrhea, but I think you guys like that as well. You told me, at least from the feedback in the comments, that's all, what you guys enjoy. I just speak my mind. Moral of the story is, to me, it's not about owning all of the plants. I can enjoy plants without owning them. I can go to the botanic garden without wanting to take cuttings, right? Every time I do a tour at any botanic garden, people are like, oh my God, I would just take cuttings. Why? Why would you take a cutting? Now you're first of all stealing, but also now you're taking a plant away that could be enjoyed by hundreds, just so it can like slowly die in the corner of your living room, right? Like, why, if you enjoy this plant, why don't you just go visit the botanic gardens more frequently? You get to enjoy the plant, but you don't have to do any of the growing. Isn't that a win-win for everybody? Plus everybody else gets to enjoy the plant as well, right? So I think the longer I've been doing this for, the more I feel like I don't need to possess all of the plants. It's more just about the joy that plants bring me, and the joy doesn't need to come from owning the plants. It can just come from looking at the plant, filming the plant, and so on, talking to people about plants. Yeah, so I hope that resonates with a lot of you. And yeah, anyway. Just wanted to say a little disclaimer again. I'm not, by no means am I shading anybody who likes to do this. Like, if that's what you enjoy about the plant hobby, that's also good. I think we're not in competition with each other. The more people that enjoy this plant hobby, the better for all of us. The better for plant businesses, plant content creators, and so on. Like, the more the merrier. I don't want this to be a hobby full of gatekeeping where it seems like the barriers of entry are crazy and you need to have the most amazing rare plants, and if your plant collection isn't even worth $10,000, then you're not worthy of creating content. All of that, not at all. Like, some of my favorite plants are the basics, like pothos, adansonii, monsteras, you know, like philodendron. Like, they're all readily available, tissue cultured. You know, it's more about growing them nicely, but also efficiently, you know, to get a good result out of them. Anyway, I'm just keep going in circles on this topic. I think we're all on the same page now. Eh? Wow, this has been so compacted because I have not repotted this in so many years. Oh my God, look at these roots! How did I get so distracted from the original topic? What was the original topic? Anthuriums, wasn't it? Yeah. Oh well, yeah, anthuriums. Anthuriums really fill that need for never-ending plant purchases. And I mean, it's a blessing for plant businesses, plant nurseries that need to stay alive. I'm very happy with my anthurium collection, and I love them, don't get me wrong at all. I just don't have the desire to expand my collection necessarily. Or if I expand it needs to be something kind of special, I think, you know. Something, either a hybrid that I made myself, not because I can make hybrids that nobody else can make, absolutely not. My hybrids are definitely subpar compared to what is out there in the marketplace, because I don't have that unique of a parent plant in the first place. But it's more about the journey of growing and hybridizing and making it, and like working with nature rather than against it. And I think that's pretty special and pretty cool to think that I can cheat nature into thinking I'm a little pollinator. Alright, that's good enough. I'll park you on the side. Oh my God, I think it's the tree fern fiber that gets into my noise. Keep going with the ones I can reach. This is also crazy rubbish hybrid. First of all, so many ugly leaves. A lot of my plants have definitely suffered a bit over winter. Should I do it? Should I just... Yeah, you know what? Oh my God, you guys gonna hate me, but I'm gonna cut all of them because they're all ugly. Guys, I have like 50 of these crazy rubbish plants. And as I said, they take up too much space. now it can focus on building and growing new leaves. It's actually quite crazy. My anthuriums were the first plants to know that it is spring. They did nothing all winter long. And majority of these, like all of the ones kind of coming up now, they're all upstairs in my bedroom, supported by the mother light. You guys know that beautiful setup over there. Oh my God, what a mess. Yeah, so they were first to notice that spring is here. Almost every single one of my anthuriums is growing a new leaf, is growing inflows. But the old leaves have very much suffered through, first of all, my negligent watering over the winter months, and also I think just winter. Yeah, but I think it's mainly me. I think I took them out of their pots I took them out of their spot to properly water and clean them once in the last 6 months. So that's probably also not good enough. At least there's no root rot over here, so I can definitely reuse the substrate. Not for this particular plant, but I have a big bucket outside where I just collect substrate that I can then use when I repot a big palm or a big Thaumatophyllum, and I just need like volume of substrate, so I don't need to use the nice good substrate, especially if a plant lives outdoors anyway. But yeah, only the really big ones, or sometimes like when the garden bed is a little bit empty, I just use it to kind of like bulk up the garden bed a little bit with more substrate, so I don't have to purchase lots of bags of potting mix or something like that instead. Very good root system actually. So this should reshoot really, really quickly. What I could also do is I could cut it and propagate it a little bit, but let's not do that actually, because I already have lots of these. With the Clinovium I only have one, with this one I have hundreds, probably 50 left by now. Honestly, the deeper I get into this repot, the dumber I think of an idea it was to just try this new substrate with every single one of them, but oh well. It's all about the journey, isn't it? And I should also really start using a little pot. Oopsie. Now what I do here is, because I freed the roots, I obviously still want to fill the gaps between these roots again with substrate. I'm not mad if there's like a little bit of an air pocket, because it's just basically hot humid air which these plants really enjoy. But obviously the substrate is what retains water, and the substrate is also what gives it structure, otherwise the plant is just going to flop out of here. Right? So I don't like to like compress it this way, because I don't want to ruin any of the roots, but I just kind of shake it and tap it on the side to make all of the substrate fill the little gaps. Oh my god. Okay, I need to take this outside again. Next one. Okay, this one is definitely a rescue case. This one I left in the greenhouse. I don't know why. It just, I forgot this one when I took them all inside. I forgot this one, and it really didn't like it. I then eventually discovered it, but this one would have lots of root rot. I know that, because it was getting really cold in that greenhouse, like 6-7 degrees, which isn't good, and too wet. So wet and cold, not a good combination. But let's see how bad it is. And let's see what I can do about it. It's actually not that bad. There's some roots here. I mean, I'm more or less gently pulling on them. And you guys are going to run out of battery. One moment, please. This is a Magnificum hybrid I have also grown from seed. So it's a little sad, because it's also the only seed that I have left, I believe, or the only plant from that batch of seeds. So after I discovered it, I just kind of put it upstairs in my little rescue section, and I kind of did nothing for it over winter. So I suppose it's not really going to recover until I give it some fresh substrate. So that's what we're doing now. And I really don't mind growing anthuriums from stumps. Like, look at this little stump over here. It's already sprouting a new little shoot. It works really well. I actually, don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure I've seen people also just like purposely just cut back all of their anthuriums at the beginning of the growing season to just encourage new leaf growth rather than having the plant hold on to old leaves. Leaves come and go, right? Roots is really what we need to look out for. And that's where I failed this plant. I did not give it conditions and or substrate that would prevent root rot. Even though my substrate is so chunky, I still sometimes get root rot because ultimately it's bacteria and or fungal. And I think sometimes my substrate is so chunky that I let it dry out too much, and then re-wetting is what's causing this, the root rot. But again, you know, like, it's probably goes back to the 80-20 thing. Like, yeah, okay, I could probably be more diligent with my watering, and I could be more diligent with my care, and as a result of it prevent a lot of these issues. But in the grand scheme of things, I feel like my plants are pretty... Did I just snap off the green bit? I think I did. Oopsie. Oh well. But I think my plants are pretty happy still, you know. Like, yes, I could do better. Everybody could always do better. But is the additional effort worth it? Am I going to start disliking the hobby because of the additional effort required, and that's not going to be offset by that additional growth that I might be seeing? I think everybody has to decide that for themselves. There's no right or wrong answer here. I'm just saying we're different people with different priorities, with different time availabilities. I'm going to squeeze these all into a teeny tiny pot, because why not? Less chances of root rot in a tiny pot, usually. And yeah, obviously at an event like the Tropical Plant Expo, there's a lot of people there that are like hardcore into plants, especially because it's hosted by the Aeroid Society. You know, I mean, obviously the Aeroid Society hasn't gotten to be the Aeroid Society because of people like me who like to just have fun with this. They're key members, let's say, they're like founding members and so on. They're all very well respected people in the aeroid community at large, because they've done it for 30-40 years. They have done a lot of work on conservation and research of these plants and hybridization of these plants and so on. They're like the hardcore aeroid people. And I love that. I think that is so cool that some people have really made it their whole life to grow and research and look into these aeroids. I really love that for them. But but over the years I've really noticed that that's not what I find enjoyment from as part of this hobby. My enjoyment definitely comes a lot from creating content. I love creating content. It's a really nice creative way, but I think a lot of the enjoyment that I get from this hobby is also from the people interaction and the people overall, or just knowing that I can make a difference to people's lives or to people's hobbies and so on. I think that brings a lot more enjoyment to me than owning the rarest plant in history, or you know what I mean. That's really what I want from this hobby and now my job. It's not. I know I'm never going to be the best grower in history. I don't want to sell plants. I don't want to hybridize plants and sell them or like patent them and all of this. I just want to bring across the joy that plants have, and I want to build a little community of people, and that was really, really special to see in Miami. How many people... Do you think this is too big? I might as well, right? It was really special to see how many people want to be part of this community, and specifically also my community. I can definitely speak about the Australian Aeroid Society. I know that just over the last few years, I think we've definitely gone through a bit of a change of in generations, right? It's historically this hobby has been very much dominated by people that have been doing this for 30, 40 years, like super niche, and without sounding rude, like just to, like people that are a little bit older, it wasn't necessarily the thing that like young people are into, right? And as a result of that, and they actually acknowledged that at the International Aeroid Society members dinner as well, as a result of that, there was times where it looked like the Aeroid Society is going to die out because nobody is joining. By the way, I actually kept a lot of inflows on a lot of my anthuriums because I do want to collect some pollen and do another pollination journey. This one is a Forgetii magnificum hybrid, one of my favorites. Just duplicated itself. It started off as one. Now I have two decent plants in there, both spotting a new leaf over here. Needs fresh substrate ASAP, like yesterday. So yeah, I think that could maybe be my contribution to the Aeroid Society. I will not be the most knowledgeable grower in history. I won't make any unique hybrids. I won't have the most knowledge about how and where these plants grow in nature. I won't have the most knowledge about optimizing every single aspect of plants. And no, I also won't have the most amazing plants to show. But I hope I can get people excited to partake in this hobby. And then maybe some of them will be like just low effort collectors with a few plants here and there, and some of them might go a little bit deeper down that rabbit hole. So maybe I'm just kind of like the gateway into the hobby, and then people can take it from there and like look at other people. But yeah, I think the longer I've been doing this for, the more I also realize that, you know what, I don't need to be everything. I don't need to be an expert in every field. I can also just admit when I don't know something, and I can also admit when I don't want to know something. Well, there's always going to be somebody on the internet that disagrees. Like people feel like just because I have a YouTube channel, people have the expectation that I must know everything, and how can I possibly be a plant expert without knowing everything? But I think that's precisely the point. If you think you know everything, you're definitely not a plant expert, because how could you possibly ever know everything? But yeah, at the beginning, it was really important to me to come across as really knowledgeable and show you my plants and how amazing they are and how perfect they are, to kind of justify why I have the need to speak up about plants, or why I would do a YouTube channel, you know, kind of just like, here, look at my receipts, kind of proof is in the pudding. And I'm still true to that method, but I also am not shy of showing you my failures, showing you reality, showing you when I don't care about a plant or I don't want to continue growing a plant, and so on, because that is more realistic. And I think not glamorizing it and not idealizing everything is going to actually give people a more realistic insight into what it's like to grow so many plants, and it's going to give them a more realistic, and it's going to help them in making a decision whether or not they want to give it a try themselves, right? There's nothing worse than like just being told that something is super easy, then you do it, and then you're just like, hang on, this is actually not that easy, and you just think it's you, and then people are like, I don't have a green thumb, blah, blah, blah. It's a skill that we all need to learn, and hopefully my videos and resources help you learn. Anyway, I'm definitely going in circles about this topic, but hopefully it just shows that I'm really passionate about this, and that I'm really feeling like I'm finding my foot in this industry and how I participate in this industry, and it's slowly helping me overcome my imposter syndrome of always kind of feeling inadequate about what I do. But I feel like now that I kind of reframed it a little bit in my mind, and I know what I stand for, and I know what I want to bring across, and I know that there's a lot of people that it resonates with, I'm feeling much better and more confident about it. And as a result of that, I'm enjoying making content more. I feel less nervous about publishing content. I feel less nervous about the comments on the back of a video. I used to be so nervous about like, oh my god, are there gonna be nasty comments? Are people gonna hate what I've got to say or not get what I've got to say and so on? But I feel much more relaxed now. I definitely feel like we've built a nice community that has got my back and appreciates my work, and I appreciate my community back. So I think it's a really nice give and take that we've created. What is going on over here? Wow, you are crazy. That's also, oh, I forgot to cut off some of the ugly leaves here. I'm so excited to cut off all the ugly leaves because they're all on like a big shelf and the ugly leaves are spreading everywhere and taking up so much space that it is annoying me. Oh, it feels so good. I feel like a weight lifted off my shoulders. I think unfortunately this is going to be a little bit too big for my normal 20 centimeters, so I'm gonna put this in a 25, which unfortunately I do not have in see-through. This entire bucket of aeroid mix might not be enough. Crazy. These big pots take so much medium. Darling, are you sleeping here? Hang on, I saw another really ugly. They're actually all kind of ugly, right? I'll leave it for now. Let's see. Oh, hang on, I need moss on this one. Are you down there again? Hello, darling. So, spring is now more officially here. It was a false start. I think in one of the videos I put a little meme in and they called it Spring of Deception because we already had a couple of 30 degree hot days at the beginning of September. It is now the beginning of October. But in between, we've had nights that went back down to 6-7 degrees. So it is one of these things where, oh my god, it's 30 degrees out. Let's go do all of my spring repotting. Let's put the plants outside. And then you're hit with this another hit of like a little cold snap again. So I'm glad that I waited putting any of my plants out because they would have suffered a little bit too much. What is going on with this plant? Seriously. But yeah, I've checked the weather forecast. It's now, I'm basically waiting until I see no more single digits on my weather forecast. There's still, I think Friday night is supposed to go down to 9, but then we're going more consistently to 12, 13, 14 degrees at nighttime. The daytime temperatures are still nice, right? Like we're hitting 20 degrees every day now and so on, but doesn't matter. The plants like consistency. They don't just switch off at night. And I think 6 degrees, ideally I wouldn't want nothing under 16 degrees for these plants, but I'm okay with 12, 14-ish. You know, I think that's okay with me. It's actually a really good use of this leftover moss. But it is quite small and flaky, so it would kind of be a bit messy in the pile, but as part of this moss pile, that's just good enough. And it's going to water in nicely as well. Actually, I won't put one here because there's no leaves yet. I'll wait until I see some root growth. Okay, now I can put these back. Hey, darling. Oh my god, don't jump around, please. You're so sweet, my darling. So sweet. Meow. So, what that means is lots and lots of work to do for me, because while I do repot and extend and so on throughout the year, where I can avoid it, I will. So for example, with these anthuriums, I don't mind them being a bit root bound because I provide liquid nutrients via my GT Foliage Focus anyway. So I rather repot them when the time is right and they have the best time growing. So that will be the beginning of spring. This is another crazy rubbish, by the way. So yes, as you can tell, I have lots of them. But this one's also a little challenged. And I just hate how these leaves go in all directions. You know what I mean? Like, it just takes up so much space. Are you doing crazy stuff there, darling? I should really start putting a few more of those on moss poles, but oh well. And I also don't like how long some of these petioles are. I don't know if it's because I'm not providing enough light or what the go is over here, but anyway, healthy roots though, look at those. So yeah, I'm starting off with the anthuriums because I feel like there's plenty of them, but I can get that out of the way, and most of them will go back inside. I think I will move a few out into the greenhouse next week after we've had that cold weekend snap. And it's going uphill. And I think they'll have a really good time out there. They definitely did last year, and last year I only moved them into the greenhouse in like December or so. So they had only had half the season really, but they were loving it. And then after that, I think next week I want to do the garden beds, and then I want to do the big plants in pots in my garden, like the palms and the bird of paradise and so on. And then once I've done the garden, I know, let's say, like what's missing or where there's like an empty spot and so on, and then I'm gonna take a few, I think, of my big moss poles. Bradley? Then I'm gonna take a few of my bigger moss poles, like I think my El Salvador, for example, I would love to grow outside this year, and so on, and I put them outside, and then I'm gonna do the rest of the plants inside. And yeah, kind of assess which plants I'm gonna put in the greenhouse as well. And then I'm gonna do the greenhouse. All of the plants in the greenhouse need a bit of a... What are you doing, darling? All of the plants in the greenhouse need a bit of a refresh. So we have a lot of repotting to do, guys. A lot. So yeah, let me know in the description down below what sort of topics you want me to talk about while I repot. I'm happy to answer some of your questions, or not, let's just say like questions. Let's do it more like generic topics that you want me to discuss. Now this one is a good example. Let's talk a little bit more about anthuriums while I maybe repot all of the anthuriums. So like, let's talk about anthurium care. So you can definitely see how this one is a climber. So I could give this a pole, but really what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pot this a little bit deeper into the pot. So this would be too small, right? I'm just going to pot this a bit deeper like this, and then I don't need to give it a pole. Too many poles already as it is. Something is definitely itchy here. And I'm also going to put it towards the back of the pot because I want all these to face one way, and I do this kind of via the shelf in which it's growing in, if that makes sense. I kind of use the side parts of the shelf to like push the leaves forward, and also just via light exposure. So the light exposure is coming from the front and the leaves want to face the light, and I will actually run out of substrate. That is crazy. I thought I made an absorbent amount of airwide mix, but I think I was underestimating how well of a root system some of these have. I didn't realize I had to basically up pot all of them. Like, most of them went into a size bigger than they were before. You know, I've got the mixed pots of anthurium, so like the lush pots of anthurium seedlings. This one is another one, and I fully forgot it in the corner of my greenhouse. So there's just stumps left. This one's the only one that's actually showing a little shoot. Here. Oh, no, there's one here, a little leaf even. So I will put this back into the greenhouse. I won't do anything with it. I see new signs of growth. This was actually put back into the greenhouse like a couple of weeks ago at the Spring of Deception. Guys, we have a few more to go. This one is... Hey, which one is this? Hey, this one is also a Queen Magnificum hybrid. You know the hybrid I said to you earlier, the Magnificum Forgetia crossed with my Queen. This is the newest leaf, and it's somehow damaged when unfurling. It could have been so gorgeous, right? I love the closed sinus and slight elongation. Not that much Queen material coming through though, unfortunately, but not bad. And don't hate me, but I just need to cut all of these little leaves off. They just piss me off. Because the way that I've got them positioned, they're really close to each other, all of these, and I can't lift one plant out of there without like just taken 5 other plants with me. So it's just become an inconvenience to look after them. And that's coming back to the same, I'm gonna keep coming back to that. It's coming back to what I said earlier, this whole like 20% of the effort getting me 80% of the results. I want that 20% of effort. Now that 20% of effort is still more than neglect, right? Like I'm definitely high touch. I'm putting in the work, I'm putting in the effort. But I'm putting in the effort that I'm willing to put in and the effort that comes natural to me. It doesn't feel like a chore. It feels like a hobby. I love walking around, looking at my plants, checking them and flipping a bottle upside down. That to me is not work. Watering plants is not work. But taking them all out of the pot and like leaves scraping against each other and kind of, you know how the leaves kind of hook into each other and then like suddenly like one plant goes flying and then scraping against the wall and all of this, that I hate it. So if I know that a plant is really hard to move or maneuver, then I'm not going to do it. And as a result of that, I'm never going to optimize that plant's growth fully, right? Because I'm not cleaning the leaves, I'm not thoroughly watering and flushing out the medium so that it actually gets aerated and flush out mineral buildups and so on as well. I know that I could do more to optimize it, but I then wouldn't enjoy it that much, you know. So to me it's a bit of that trade-off, and as a result of that I definitely think my plants don't look as beautiful as they used to look. When I had less plants and they were smaller and they were easier to maneuver and move into my bathtub every weekend, I did that and it really showed. But yeah, as I said, it's a trade-off at the end of the day, and you need to make a trade-off between how is this hobby going to stay enjoyable while having results that you're happy with. And that again is a decision for every single person to decide for themselves. I've seen comments the other day, like I've actually, because of the Aeroid Fair, started just being a little more influencery and actually started like responding to my DMs and so on. And I mean, the other day I saw House Plus Plants. Is that how you say it? When you say it out loud, it sounds weird. You know, but we know who you're talking about. She posted a video of her Cissus discolor that kind of got a bit neglected, and there was just the first comment that, like, you know how Instagram suggests like a little comment popping up? The first comment that they suggested popping up was from a gentleman saying like, you should do better if you can't keep a plant alive. What are you on here doing content? This is a disgrace, something like that. He was like really rude and basically saying like, oh, as a content creator, as a plant influencer, you're not allowed to have any failures, or if you do, then at least not show them or whatever. And I could not agree. I could not disagree more. Like, that is ridiculous. Like, we all are just human. We can all forget about a plant and by accident neglect it. I mean, I get it so much when I post my oxalis. You know how my oxalis, when it's dehydrated, looks really dramatic? People are like, why would you abuse your plant and purposely neglect it just for the sake of a video? Guys, the neglect, I literally didn't water it in 48 hours. It used to, when it's in the full sun and it was really lush, really pot bound, it would just drink up so quickly. I would almost need to water it daily, and if I don't water it daily and I leave it for 2 days, then that's what it looks like, and the plant recovers just fine and is happy as nothing. So quite clearly the results speak for themselves, but people still feel so opinionated and want to tell people on how to do their hobby and how not to do their hobby and how to do their job and how not to do their job and so on. How does this started? How did that conversation start? I don't remember. But yeah, I couldn't disagree more with it. I think it is okay. We are allowed to neglect our plants a little bit as well. We are also just humans, and I don't ever want this to turn into like an obligation where the plants are holding me back from enjoying my life, or the plants are holding me back from doing something that I really want to do. If I want to go on a holiday, I won't let my plants hold me back. I'll be worried about the plants in my friend's care for sure, but I don't want the plants to hold me back on experiencing life. I want the plants to enable me to experience and appreciate life. And that's what they're doing. This hobby has now sent me to Miami. has opened up a lot of experiences that I wouldn't have normally experienced. It has given me time. Like, I can do this as a full-time job now and actually enjoy my life and enjoy the time I've got on this planet without just sitting behind a desk non-stop and suddenly like, oh my god, 40 years went by and you're still looking at the same spreadsheet. Hang on. Oh no, not enough. So that's what I want. I don't want plants to be a source of anxiety or a source of, you know, like negativity. That kind of defeats the purpose for me. So yes, I am coming back to that same topic that I've been going on and on and on about earlier. Maybe I should just shut up, huh? I need to make a new pot of substrate. I also need to clean up a little bit because I'm getting a bit agitated. I probably should have one more coffee. And there's only a few more plants to go before we take them all out for a good watering. And of course, in traditional Sydney fashion, rain has stopped. And it probably won't start again because that would be too convenient. But you know what? We can make our own rain. Thanks to yours truly, the garden hose. So anyway, let me clean up, get a new tub of aeroid mix because I need to go downstairs. It's dark down there in the garage. Like I can't really film down there. And I'll see you really soon. Alrighty, I'm back. Not looking much cleaner, but we're getting there. Alrighty, I'm busy potting up this plant. And I completely lost track of what we were talking about. But it was probably just a repetition of I want plants to be fun. Next one. I have no idea what this is. I think this is a Magnificum hybrid. Just Magnificum X. I think that's what it was sold to me. If that's the one I'm thinking about. I think that's the one. Looks pretty average, to be honest. Not bad, but also not like a standout. It's bottom shelf potential. That's where it lives. It lives on the bottom shelf. It gets the least light, the least attention. But it is doing something. Look at that. New leaf. So even the bottom shelf plants are growing. So we know it's definitely spring. What's behind me now? This is definitely not as root bound as some of the others, but roots are still looking healthy. I'm impressed by how healthy these roots are. I honestly expected so much root rot on so many of them, given how negligent I was with the watering. Little layer of aeroid mix. Now let's talk a little bit more about how I care for these anthuriums. I mean, throughout the video I kind of addressed a little bit of it already, but basically I'm not super consistent with where my anthuriums live. Some are in the greenhouse over summer, some are indoors for the whole year, some are upstairs in my bedroom, just supported by a mother grow light, some are in my IKEA cabinet. Do I have some growing just in natural? Well, I suppose the ones in the greenhouse just live, they just get natural light. And they move in there. Which also means that in summer they can easily be exposed to 35, 38, 39. I think it's gone up to 40 degrees in that greenhouse. But I have misters, so it's constantly humid. Whereas inside, some of these might be exposed to, you know, like down to 16, 17 degrees at nighttime. Some of them I had in a more chunky aeroid mix like that I used to make. Then I started using a bit of tree fern fiber in it because I know that they like a bit more water retention. Most of them have a moss. What's next? Are you next? Because you're annoying me a little bit. Most of them have like a moss pile on top, but not all of them. This, by the way, is my Papillamillum and Dresslery hybrid, and I just did a time lapse of that. I love doing these time lapses, but they always perform incredibly poor online. When I upload them as a short, like no interest. So I'm like, wow, I just filmed for a month and nobody cares. But I think that's so fascinating to watch. I'm surprised not more people like these time lapses, to be honest, or the algorithm doesn't show them the time lapses, but then the algorithm in itself is kind of a bit stupid. When I was in Miami, there were so many people that were unaware of me coming, whereas like I spoke about this a lot leading up to it. I mean, maybe if you don't follow me on Instagram, maybe I wasn't quite as vocal on YouTube as I was on Instagram about it. But it would be harder to miss than to see. But it's just the algorithm doesn't show you the content that you actually want to see often, or like the content that you subscribe to. It's like, no, why would we show you that if we can also show you rubbish? So yeah, anyway. So quite clearly, I'm not super consistent with my anthuriums. They're not all living like in my anthurium room or like in a grow tent or whatever. But I think overall, I'd say they're like higher humidity, but by no means do they actually need 99% humidity. Over the last couple of weeks, for example, it's been down to like 30 to 40% humidity in my bedroom because it's been really dry. And they seem to be doing okay. I don't think they are as finicky as people initially made it sound like. I think it was a genus that I was a bit hesitant in getting into, and I got into my Philos and my Monsteras first, and I only really dabbled into anthuriums once I felt like I'm a little bit more of an experienced grower. But I think in hindsight it's not necessarily true at all. I don't think anthuriums are necessarily more trickier than some other plants. I think what I find tricky is the watering. I'm very good at watering my moss poles, and I'm very efficient at it with that water upside down, and it doesn't take any time. And because most of the root system is within the pole, I also don't really need to take the plant out of its planter and check the pot and the moisture levels. I often underwater the pot, but that's okay because I'm relying on the roots within the pole anyway. With anthuriums, I don't have that security of a root system within the moss pole. So I actually really dislike the watering experience with anthuriums. Hence, I'm kind of just taking a spray bottle and spraying the top layer of moss until it's moist and hope that enough water kind of goes through. Which is obviously not the right approach. But I mean, so far they're still alive. But definitely something I want to change over the next few months and see if I can, with a new substrate and a little bit more effort on the watering front, if I can maybe get these back to their former glory, because they're definitely not looking their best. But yeah, I think my recommendation, and I mean, obviously we all have such different conditions to offer. If you can offer high humidity, then I would, but you don't have to. I definitely would avoid coolish temperatures. But I think it's definitely worth trying. But with anthuriums, it's like a rabbit hole, right? As I mentioned earlier, you can very easily go into territory where suddenly you pay hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for an anthurium. If you're growing an anthurium for the first time, I would definitely try to just go for a really inexpensive hybrid and just experience the growth journey first. And then based on how the plant and you enjoyed it, then maybe go and seek out the plant that you actually really wanted, right? I hear a lot of people struggle with queens, and I'll show you mine in a sec. She's not living their best life, but overall, historically, I've had a pretty easy time looking after the queen. But it was also actually the most expensive plant purchase I've ever made, that queen, back in the days. They're now more readily available and much more affordable, but back in the days it was really, really expensive, and I only got it after I was probably already growing for 2.5 years back then, and I already had my IKEA cabinet, and I had like a system in place of like how to onboard my plants and make them recover from the shock and so on. And she's gone from strength to strength. But if you don't have that just yet, I wouldn't necessarily recommend dropping a lot of money on a plant. But each to their own. Just saying it could potentially be a source of dissatisfaction from this hobby for you if you spend so much money and then you feel like a failure. And there's plenty of inexpensive Anthurium hybrids out there. I definitely think hybrids in themselves are always easier to grow. And there's lots of nice Crystallina, Magnificum, Forgetii hybrids. And they're all nice in the grand scheme of things. I think sometimes spending 2 or 3 times the amount of money doesn't necessarily make the plant 2 or 3 times that pretty or rewarding to grow. Sometimes quite the opposite. Something is really rare, it might just be that it's really hard to grow. That's why there's not much supply. So yeah, I think definitely dabble into it, but just be warned, it's a slippery slope. You'll never collect them all, you'll never catch them all. So if you're like a obsessive collector, maybe just don't even start because you will never collect them all. As you buy them, there's people coming up with new hybrids left, right and center. Also be prepared for a lot of space commitment. Like you can see, this plant is spreading, even though I'm managing these leaves quite nicely. So it's in a shelf, so you can see by this petiole, for example, the shelf is pushing this leaf forward. The shelf would be here, kind of. So I use the shelf to manipulate the plant to face the way I want it. If I wouldn't do that, this would spread like crazy. Maybe I would manage to have like 2 of these in my whole room, and the room would be full. This ugly leaf has been bothering me, and it looks like little baby was naughty and had a little bite of them, huh? This one's ugly too, and this one is ugly too. I love cutting. Look, if I was going into winter, I would not actually do that because I would want to hold on to the leaves so they can produce energy. But we are going into spring, so new leaves will come. So I think this is actually going to trigger new growth instead, rather than hold the plant back. And the roots are so healthy, I have no hesitation or have no worries about this. Nah, that's not happening, eh? I have no fear of this not recovering. Okay, this is the only other pot I've got up here, and I can't be asked to go back down into the garage again. It will be a pain to find a pot for this one, but I think I'll do it. What is this? 30 centimeters. Might as well, huh? I mean, I gotta give it some potential to grow. And then I'll hopefully don't have to repot this plant again for a few years. But that makes me think maybe I didn't make enough substrate again. Like, these big pots take a lot of substrate. Holy moly. Fucking hell, I'm so gonna have to do another trip down there after all. Oh my god, so heavy, even though the substrate is so light. Alrighty, next up, I think this is a Crystallinum hybrid. Yeah, and there's a funky leaf pushing out here. Looks a bit tortured, but it will be fine. These roots do not look the healthiest, so let's assess this. So yeah, I was also talking about Anthuriums. I use my normal nutrient GT Foliage Focus with them as well, but as I said, I use it with every watering, but as I mentioned, my waterings weren't super good, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I think I could have seen more growth facilitated by the nutrients if I would have provided the nutrients more consistently and also fully flushed them through the medium rather than just kind of spraying them onto the top layer of moss and letting it somewhat sink through. Still healthy roots, looks good, so I don't know why the leaves are looking so bloody sad, but I know what I'm gonna do with sad leaves. You know what, you as well. We're gonna, given there's a new one coming, we're gonna focus all of our energy on that. But I'm running low on substrate, so I want to put this back into a smaller pot. Maybe we will make it after all, because I think there's only 2 plants to go. Okay, now this one, oh my god, you're gonna hate me. This. with my first Anthurium, and it's probably my most hated at the moment. Look how much it spreads and look how ugly it is, and also look at all of the holes that this newest leaf has gotten. Now this one is living in my attic, like, because I don't want to look at it because it's too ugly, and because it lives up there it also gets neglected because I'm hardly up there, only up there to do laundry sometimes. So I'm gonna try something, and I think I'm gonna completely cut this back because I don't know where to put this plant with that spread. And realistically, at the moment, I just don't enjoy looking at this plant. I'll keep the newest leaf. It's ugly, but it exists. So at least we're not going full bold. But I also can't wait to eventually chop this off. You know what, I feel so much lighter now that I cut this off. Even just bringing it down the stairs, because it lives up. Bringing it down the stairs, because it's like, it's impossible to not have one leaf at a time either get caught on the handrail or the wall or the corner, because they just spread so much. I literally can't move this plant around without causing damage. So it's just not enjoyable to me. So, yeah. However, oh my god, it actually has very healthy roots. However, this has been my first Anthurium I've ever bought, and it was actually really expensive back in the days. Anthuriums were really expensive 4 years ago over here in Australia, or 3 years, whatever. They've come down in price a lot because so many growers are now making their own hybrids and so on. Oh wow, this is getting messy. Anyway, where am I going with this? It was my first Anthurium, and it was the Anthurium that I used to make my crazy rubbish hybrids. Well, it's a hybrid with itself, but it's a hybrid in itself already, so you know what I mean. So, I should have really used that repotting mat, which I've put together and then never used. So, it has sentimental value, but for me, plants also need to look good. I want to look at nice looking plants. I don't want to look at something that bothers me. And this plant was bothering me. I didn't know where to display it. It took up the space that 3 other plants could fill instead. So I'm like, well, if I need to choose, I'd rather have 3 plants than just one ugly one. Wow, this is super root bound. But given I'm already doing fundamental resets over here, I'm also not going to be too gentle. And look, we're going to find out. Let's do a little video in a couple of months' time on my Anthuriums and see how they coped with my rough repot. But yeah, this Anthurium has taught me a lot about growing Anthuriums, how to care for Anthuriums, how to pollinate Anthuriums, to germinate Anthuriums and so on. So it's been a pleasure growing this plant, but it's probably time for a little reset because I honestly haven't enjoyed this plant in over a year now. So why am I going to spend... I don't want to dedicate space to a plant that I'm not enjoying. So something needs to change, and I think given how many roots it has, I don't think it's going to take long for this plant to come back and live its best life. So it looks like with the last repot, I just took the plant, put it in a bigger pot and filled in the gaps because it's very compacted in the middle. Sounds like something I would do. Now when it comes to pests in Anthuriums, to be honest, I've not really encountered many pest issues with Anthuriums. I think I'm always, like my velvets and my alocasias are so much more prone to have pests. I just honestly try to think of them. I think some in the cabinet had some thrips, but I used Confidor spray. I think active ingredient is immatriculably that one. Yeah, overall, like the ease of, like, Anthuriums are fun to look after. I think the aesthetics is my issue, the growth pattern is my issue. We're making progress here though. And given I need to use a ginormous pot for this again, I think I'm gonna reuse some of the substrate. What I love about anthuriums is how thick and chunky their roots are. They just look so cool. They look like ramen. Yeah, I'm getting really hungry actually. Oh, I have an idea. Instead of just completely destroying it, why don't I propagate this plant? But I need to free up that stem. I can't even see the stem. Look at the roots. Oopsie. Look like delicious noodles, huh? Oh my god, what have I done? So, I'm gonna go ahead, you can see the stem now. I'm gonna go ahead and cut the stem. I'm gonna cut right here. Okay, let's see what we end up with. Number one, decent. I cut one more. I try to come a bit closer, but it's, honestly, I can hardly see what I'm doing. Can you see this over here? I'm just gonna cut. Yeah. You can see this compressed moss in here. That's not what I want. Beautiful. It's giving me like a... it's giving me club kit. Oh my god, I'm an idiot. Alright. Oh well, this root didn't make it. Oh my god, the mess. I can't concentrate. Let's put these aside. How are there so many roots? I have no idea. Wow. Okay. Oh, sorry, I need to... We only have one more to go, but this is... Actually, no, we need to pot up the ones from earlier, right? Okay. The Queen. She has seen much better days. However, she does not need a repot. She's actually very happy in her pot, and I'll bring you a bit closer in a sec. But what she needs is a trim, and we need to reconfigure these leaves. You know how I like to manage the leaves using twine. Every few months or so I like to redo it because the plant changes. First of all, we've got this yellow inflow. It's a bit sad. I was hoping to collect some pollen, but it never eventuated. I'm not too sure what happened. It could be that I let it... Oh my god, English. It could be that I let dry out the... Oh my god. It could be that I let the plant dry out too much, and as a result of it, the plant aborted the inflow. Not a bad thing. I want leaves anyway. This one is in desperate need for new leaves because some of the old ones are very ugly. I think this one is also extremely ugly. I'm only gonna keep 3 leaves. Should I even keep this one? I don't even know. At this stage it's kind of ugly, huh? Let me maybe just trim this. Nobody will know. Nobody will know. Now this is just gonna make the edges go yellow again really quickly. I'm just buying a little bit of time. I need new leaf growth, but I think I've been a little bit slack in keeping it moist. These ones really don't like to dry out, but I've got some twine here and I'm going to do the styling a little bit to see if I can at least cheat into making it look nicer than it actually is. So what I really want to do here is I'm going to use the pole as my guide, right? So I'm going to put a piece of twine on this petiole over here. Whoop. And then take this close to the pole. So that's a nice compact look. I go around the pole and then onto the next leaf. This one. Around the pole and then onto the next leaf. No, I don't know if this looks any better from your point of view. I'm doing it from the back. But also it's gonna have to take a week or two or so for the leaves to kind of face the same direction again, and then it will be fine. For now, I'm kind of happy with this. I've had a good chat to Doc Block actually at the Airwood Society, and he uses reverse osmosis to improve the quality of his water that he then gives to his anthuriums, which is great, but reverse osmosis is also very water consuming. I used to use reverse osmosis for my own drinking water. I now have a different water filter that I use for my drinking water because I don't like the tap water over here. And I used to give my plants that water as well, but I eventually had too many plants where I needed to do too much of the filtration process, and it's just really water inefficient and wasting a lot of water. And especially in an arid country like Australia, like I don't want to just waste that much water. Plus, I think it's not necessarily super relatable. Not everybody's gonna reverse osmosis filter their water to then give to their plants, and I want my growth approach to be easily replicated by people at home. So I've only been using tap water for the last 2 years, and yeah, I think as a result of that, my leaves aren't that perfect either. So I know I could change the water that I use and check the pH and blah 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 to optimize it, but again, it comes back to I feel like it's not necessarily making this hobby more relatable or more enjoyable. I feel like it's just adding to the list of chores that I need to do, and we're just overcomplicating things. I'd much rather just cut off the yellow bits. Anyway, rant over. Have a look at these. Lots and lots of really nice roots in there. They look all really healthy, so nothing to do here. And a new leaf coming. I just need to water this. Also means we have gone through all of them, but there's a few that are parked on the side that I now need to do. Let's go with these. They had plenty of time to dry out, and I'm so not gonna make this. This is not gonna be enough substrate. Damn it. Yeah, this poor plant, it had such a good time like 3 years ago, and then it declined, and I've just never ever been able to recover it from there. So, oh well, what can we do, huh? It is what it is, that's reality. Sometimes I don't know what went wrong, but trying again, I gotta do something different. But it's okay, I did something different with all of them today, gave them a new substrate. So, oh no, I just squished that leaf. Oh wow. Alrighty my friends, for this last one I need to do one more batch of air mix, and you're running out of battery again. So let me change you guys and make more air mix, and I'll be back potting up the last one, and then we can finally water them all. Alrighty, I am back, and I've decided to maybe put this into 2 pots, because I mean it is a lot. Oh my god, I don't know, can you see Bradley on the side of the frame? I don't think you can, he's so cute. Now, I have to remind myself that this is a different substrate. I do think this new substrate is probably going to suit my lazy approach a little bit better, because it's more water retentive, so less watering requirements. So that'll be good, but I just need to be careful, because historically I've always used such a chunky mix that I'm always watering quite frequently, so I just need to make sure that I account for that going forward. But that is what these see-through pots are so good for as well, right? They'll help me stay accountable. They'll help me assess my watering needs and so on. I just need to be not too lazy to actually pick them up out of the decorative planter and look. Like, that's literally been my biggest challenge recently. I just keep them in there in the spray. But oh well, I actually expected my negligence to have much more of an impact on these plants' health. They all seem super healthy, so especially in the root department, can't complain at all, huh? Yes, this is already quite root bound, but that's okay. I'm happy for this plant to be root bound and focus on some leaf growth, huh? Because you have nothing to show for, nothing. And I will not put a layer of moss on here because I think the water retention is good enough. There's no leaves for now, and I don't want the moss to potentially cause mold on these stumpy pieces. And that is it. Is it? I think so. Let me quickly double check and clean up and all of the shebang. One moment, please. Alrighty, here I am, surrounded by all of my anthuriums. Cleaned up a little bit. My mind is at peace. But we now need to take them all out and give them a good watering. After 5 years of growing plants, I finally have a watering can. So I mixed a little bit of CCS, which is Clonex Clone Solution, a GT product, which is usually like what I like to use to establish cuttings and so on, and Root Zone, which also, as the name suggests, helps with the root system. So I'll just put that in here and thoroughly water in every plant. Okay, and now I'm gonna just shower them all, and yes, technically I should really do it the other way around, right? Oh my god, what happened here? Did that get even worse today? I think I ripped apart, huh? Oh well, oopsie, didn't even notice. Also, look how good the drainage is in my garden. Yes, technically I should be doing it the other way around, because now obviously I might also flush out a few more of the nutrients. But the substrate is so light, I was worried that these plants are just gonna fall over if I start showering them without having a bit of water weight within the substrate. So if they all now fall over, especially with all of these young leaves. Oh my god, this one I ripped as well. See, that's why they're too fragile. They don't move well. These. Anyway, yeah, I didn't want them to just all come crashing down, especially the new leaves and their petioles rip and so on. So I just did it that way. And honestly, if I flush a few of the nutrients out with this shower, then so be it. YOLO. Alrighty, I will let them all dry over here, and then the real challenge starts. Putting them all back to where they belong. Now that a lot of them got up potted, I'm sure I'll need to find new pots for them and so on. So that's gonna take a hot minute, but I think this video is already long enough. So thank you so much for coming along. If you watched all the way, please leave a what sort of emoji? Leave a shopping cart emoji, because anthuriums are the perfect plant to go shopping for because there's so many of them. Yeah, like the video, share it with anybody else, watch it again. I really appreciate your support, and I'll see you next time. Bye.